Yanda was the Rivada Shanson, then one they were a shepherd, Jeden, by Jibon. Kalojo, Lana, Meva, Lada, Milan, Jeden, Sanjay, Pejawa Shaja, Tubala, Shazen, Lonchedo, Jazushi. The Mahajum, then the Shinship, Jajum, Yanda was of Sanjay. Shazon, then one they were a shepherd, Jeden, by Jibon, the Kalojo. Lana, Meva, Lada, Milan, Jeden, Sanjay, Jumden, the Pejawa Shaja. Chazelo Jedo Jazo Jevo de Ma Jumden, the Shinsha, Jajo, Zobe Sanyeri, Wada Shazon, Demba, the Oresha, Jedin, Given Dura. Lana Meva, Lada, Menam Jedemba, Sanjay Jumden, the Pejo, Shajan. Chazelo Jedo Jazo Jevo, Kazek, Zovo Jedo, Sajan. Ngane Jedin, the No Georges, on the Zekeva Jama. Nanda Kunga Chok. Ishaja Zose Jerumboda, Tawan Jeda Sumam. Gomboshuni Jona Cha, Zelo Senjo, the Motimenda. Seldon Rawa Jona Cha, Zelo, the Jena Seva Sumai. Yame Kenja Jona Cha, Zelo, Gombo to Jesha, Tom Jake. Sonami Deja Zujan, the Jenja Cha, Zelo, Tabe de Jatu, Givengas. Chedo de Majojo was in Jona Cha, Zelo, Tenet. Lava Dala Rabdo Nation Gadamba, the Indent get real on your child. The Wachia, Misha Gava, Person so Rangi Simne Yozo Pil, Tene Sunday Temba, Kamara, Mameta, and Jumasi, Chubur, Melum Lota, Tina. The Jishan, the Dada, Solomon Dia, Tom Jesse, Quantum Nation Genda. Gadan Dada, Jira, Love to be Sibia Solent, and Jory.
To the teacher, the last one, the one who full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer one, the Shakya clan, thy prostrate make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one God being, the full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer one, the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one God beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When I was supreme among humans, you upon this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms serene and pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 wars, win out the best, to you I prostrate. With a supreme science, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 words are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with the qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to dustness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and those who show the path to liberation, the holy few qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Star, mirage, or flame of a lamp, illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See you condition things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all sin, subdue the flow of false, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Jodo Zoje Jonama Chanju Pado Dane Jazoje, Nage Jazoje, Sono. Jola Pinje Sanje Joga Jola Sanje Jodo Zoje Jonama Chanju Pado Dane Jazoje, Nage Jazoje, Sono, Jola Pinje Sanje Joga Jola Sanje Jodo Zoje Jonama Chanju Pado Dane Jazoje, Nage Jazoje, Sono, Jola Pinje Sanje Joga
The refuge into Illuminating the Buddha, Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge into Illuminating to the Buddha, the Lama, and Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge into Illuminating to the Buddha, the Lama, and Tsongkaphas. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Tamje Jemala Jazon, Deda Sanje Jumde, the Shisha Wanda, Jumaya, Zobe Sanje Ribana, Shabon, the worship and Jitenja, but you won't do the Hadam Men and Yetamba Sanje Jumden, the Shisha, the Sonam Tabi Givezawa Namachi Mesa Severa Dojem, Sonam Jeteran, Pages of Channel Medojem. Juere Matomatona Medima Meba Tebemana, Mobraka, Sheriff Sigim, Tona Zimam. Sinjetam Jetemba, Chajusaman, Yavu, Pabia Casana, Jevo, Yangan, they were to get a Tebe. Ishebado Meba Baba Sanjim, Sonamata, Yanim, Vijeta, Chomej, Kusumba, Jabata. Soda Genya Mamoga, Sumebata, the Majaba, Dungan, number two, Pumota, come not with them, but Jason and Damba. Devana machine to Java Yonzo don't want the number to Sivala to Chuva and give a Yishi Yonzo and Javata Majumba. Tatajima Sanji Jim Lady, Yishela, Neaba, Yangan, Yanda, Yatala, Neba. Simjetam Jena Zibe Sala Shuba, and the Don Sanji Jim Lady, which away in the Yanda. Tabishana Tomagiba, Padagiba, Tomagiba, Jans and Sindras, Manjaba, Yonzo, Yonzo, Chang. Yanda Watoma Nemeva, Tusheva Meva, Yavatam, Detomana, Kevana, Sozora, Jim de Yella was a mention the one and the Rodoman, Yavacha, Zobe Sanju, Drovacha, Devata, Temba Yuba, Tawajim in the Nia, Lavashuba, Tabashuba, Tumashuba, Tamaja, Charge. Sonam de Pegi, Shin, Joan Jimena Zujuba, Kuno, Jimena Zujuba, Chambo. Kangia to Zenia Zona Bawa and Japan, Adam Charles. So I think we are on the page 187. 87, yeah. So right now, this is trying to identifying the true grasping of self, the grasping of self phenomena, the grasping of self person. So when it comes to the grasping of self person, the focal object is I or the mind, right? I and mind. So the grasping truly existing of I and mind, which is the grasping self person, and the grasping self and the phenomena, then other than I and mind, or like eye, nose, tongue, table, house, trees. So the truly existing of the kind of, the phenomena are the grasping self phenomena. So two, right? So I think the distinctions between two, the grasping self and the self of person and grasping self of phenomena is based on the focal object. So if the focal object is I and mind, and then the grasping self of person, if the focal object is other than I and mind, or kind of like body, feeling. So these truly existing, grasping truly existing of body, kind of color, smell, taste, tactilities, so are considered to be the grasping self of phenomena, right? So it's, so that's why. So the question and answer the questions. If this is so, how is it that in the commentary, in the part pertaining to the line, then with the thought mind, Chandrakirti writes, thinking this mind, they manifestly cling to all things that are other than object of grasping at I, and thus state that clinging to this is mine on the basis of focusing on basis such as the I is a form of grasping at mine. That's the question, right? So the answer for that, replying, the meaning here is the meaning here is this: on the basis of having perceived I and so on as mine. So it's not like the grasping of self, a person is, truly existing of I and mind. So here's, I think the little bit tricky is, so we can understand the grasping of truly existing of I is the grasping self, person, and mind. So what is that mind? So here's the mind itself is the focal object. And the focal, that mind is the focal object, and the basis for the mind can be table, clothing, bodies. But so all kind of, based on the body and the, the entity that is designated as a mind, that very entity of mind itself is the focal object. When this is the focal object, and the grasping of truly existing on that is the grasping of self, person, I and mind. So without thinking in I and mind, or just this is the body, or this is the tree, this is something like, so using, like for example, the table as the focal object, and then grasping truly exists on the table is the grasping self phenomenon. Right. So here to make a distinction, focal object. Here's used the focal object. In Tibetan we call mikpa. Mikpa means is literally the mikpa means the basis for can be give basis for the identity, the basis for the identity. Yeah. So chöda kansa even namye songs chöda kansa. So the the question here is, there's a two, when it comes to the ignorance, there's a two. Ignorance divided into two. Ignorance with the grasping and truly existing of I and mind, the ignorance, the grasping, truly existing of body, table, feeling, thought. So that's why the grasping of this self, person.
So are you saying, Geshe-la, that the identity, this is kind of an important point, and I'm not sure I get it. Mipa, I'm going to that word, Mipa. Is the identity based, and maybe you can't say it's one or the other, but does the identity come from what is being grasped at? Is
Yes.
the identity, it's dictated by the object that you're grasping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the grasping of self, a person, and the grasping of self phenomena is both are ignorance, right? And then how do you kind of make a distinctions, saying this is the grasping of self person, not the grasping of self phenomena, and this is the grasping of self phenomena, not the grasping of self person. So then there's the focal objects. From the focal object, if you are grasping truly existing on I and mind, that is the grasping self person. If you're grasping truly existing on other than I and mind, like a table, body, feeling, thought, house. So the truly existing of those phenomena called the grasping self person, a phenomena. Right. So it's simple. Now when it comes to the people may think, yes, I can understand the grasping self. Truly existing of I is the object of grasping self person, and how it comes the mind. So grasping truly existing on the mind, well, how can that be the grasping self person? Because the mind is not necessarily to be a person, right? This is mine, this I is mine, this nose is mine. So then it says, these are the bases to designate mind. The mind is the designated entity designated based on eye, nose, tongue. But the eye, nose, tongue are not a person. But, when you are, conceptually identifying mind means that concept that mind is focusing on the kind of directly related to the I, right? I and minds. So it's kind of, I is just entity, mind is the attributes with the I.
So it's focusing on the possessor. It's not
not the things that possessed by you, right? So the grasping self person. So this is, so that's kind of, so the meaning here is the basis of having perceived the I and so on and as a mind, we tend to manifestly cling to the truly existing mind. It is not the case, however, that I and so on, which are instants of the mind, are themselves the object of focus. For this would bring the consequences that being an instance of the identity view and the grasping at the self-existing of phenomena would not be mutually exclusive. So as for the focal object of the innate grasping at the self-existing of phenomena, that includes the grasping at the grasping aggregates of form and so on, like body, feeling, discrimination, awareness, all of them, so on, at the eyes and ears and so on, of both self and others, as well as at the external environment that is not part of our inner world. As for the aspect apprehended by
this grasping at the self-existing of phenomena, it is the same as explained above in the context of the grasping at the self-existing of persons. Now it is this form, the grasping at the self-existence of person and phenomena, that constitute the ignorance binding us to the second existing, for example, second existence. For example, 70 stanzas on the emptiness says, Nagarjuna, 70 stanzas of the emptiness says, things arises from the cause and the condition that which conceives these to be real. The Buddha taught to be ignorance. From this emerge the dwellings. So I think that's the kind of important things. The root of the dwellings, the dependent originations, the derived from the root of that is the ignorance. Ignorance, there's two kinds of ignorance: grasping the self person and the grasping self phenomena. These two are the root of the dwellings. So all the dwellings emerge from this. In the Prasangika school, what they want to say is, Prasangika school want to say that grasping the self of person or the phenomena are afflictive emotions. So most of the school, they don't really accept the ignorance is afflictive emotions. So afflictive emotions are the, the emotional factors they derive from the ignorance. Ignorance itself is not necessary to be afflictive emotions. So the Prasangika school says, yes, ignorance, it is the afflictive emotions. Because the Refuting Sutra, this says, the misconception is the illness. It is the pain, right? So, that little bit. So Nagarjuna's 70 stanzas of the emptiness. So things arisen the cosmic condition which conceive these to be real. So the arising of any kind of effect and the grasping that very entity of the arising as a truly existing. So Buddha taught to be ignorance. So here in the 70 stanzas of the emptiness, referring that the grasping of self phenomena itself is the root of the dwellings of dependent originations. So thus taking things and the phenomena as one's object and grasping at them as the existing with final reality said to be the ignorance. So sometimes there's, translators, they use their own way, final reality. Yeah. So it's more like things and phenomena and one's object and grasping at them as existing ultimately, absolutely, objectively.
That's what it means here.
Yeah. So they want to say it objectively, absolutely, is said to be ignorance. That is the root of the second existence. So far, maybe these are the kind of, sometimes it's confusing because we don't have set the rules how to translate things. So, too liberal. So, root of the second existence. And since such grasping at the self-existing of phenomena brings ignorance, the grasping at the self-existing of person, it is taught that 12 links on dependent originations come into being from such grasping. For this ignorance to cease, so this ignorance to cease, one must see how things exist in the way such ignorance apprehended, and how the self-existing it conceives has no bearing on reality, which means, so having said that, the grasping of self, person, and the phenomena are the ignorance, and to eliminate that this ignorance, and you have to come to understand the object that is apprehended or conceived by the ignorance, proven to be non-existence, right? So if you don't, if there is no kind of, if you cannot find the way to proving the object that conceived by the ignorance is not truly exist or not exist at all, then you cannot get rid of the ignorance. So you have to prove completely wrong in order to overcome the ignorance. So this is, the overcoming ignorance is with the wisdom, and the proving the ignorance is 100% wrong perceptions. So this year in this lines trying to explain that. So the grasping, for this ignorance to cease, one must see how nothing exists in the way such ignorance apprehended, and how the self existence it conceives has no bearing on the reality. 70 stanzas on the emptiness state that, but one realizes things are empty, one sees the truth, and is confused no more. So ignorance come to cease from this 12 links cease. So with the kind of, with the wisdom that realize emptiness, that can, that the wisdom can, to eliminate the ignorance. By overcoming or eliminating the ignorance, you will end the 12 links of divine originations. So that's the Nagarjuna. And then the presence to the ultimate expanse. This is also from Nagarjuna. Presence to the ultimate expanse says, grasping at self and mind, long does one conceptualize the external. When one sees the true selflessness, the seed of the sacred existence cease. So I think same is the same meaning, same content.
Does the true selflessness means self and phenomena?
The self here referring to the I in mind. The phenomena is other than that, like.
Oh, the self and the object.
Yeah.
Self and the object.
It's self and the object. So, kind of when one sees the selflessness, and that kind of, so that will overcome or purifies the ignorance. By overcoming the ignorance, and you will kind of, root out the seed of the sacred existence. And that which supremely purifies the mind is the teaching of no intrinsic existence. So Simjong Chok means the kind of, it supremely purifies means.
Sem, Jo, Chok. Sem is mind.
Yeah.
What is Jo and Chok?
Sem is the mind. Jong means purify. Chok means is a supreme. Right? The best way of purifying the mind is the absence of intrinsic existence, which means emptiness. Right? So, and then Ayadeva, so 400 stanzas 2 says, when one sees no self in the object, the seed of the second existence will cease. So the seed of the second existence will end it, right? When you when you realize the emptiness of the person and the phenomena. So again, there's a little bit additional what Nidit says. It's not. It does not mean that the moment that you realize emptiness and then second existence has stopped. No. So the realization of emptiness is the one that will eventually they get rid of the second existence. Eventually, gradually, it ends the second existence. It's not like just lighting up and then all the darkness the instantly gone, right? So it's wisdom realizing emptiness and then continues the meditating, and gradually, eventually, it will end the second existence. So, and therefore, all afflictions will be destroyed as well through the destruction of the delusions. So here, delusions, sometimes there's. I feel like not following the rules. So here the Timu Chombe Chombe. So Timu is the ignorance. So it's kind of like, therefore, all afflictions will be destroyed as well through the destruction of ignorance.
Right? It's not a misconception.
Yeah, is the ignorance means misconception. Ignorance here is referring to the true grasping of self. So these two are the most kind of root of all the afflictive emotions. So therefore all afflictions will be destroyed as well through the destruction of ignorance. When this truth of the dependent origination is seen, right? So when you see everything is dependently arising, the delusion will emerge no more. So how you reduce and the overcomes the afflictive emotions is by the by understanding or the realizing the subtle dependent originations, right? So when you realize the dependent originations, and so that automatically and become the antidote or the remedy to the afflictive emotions. So now this is like to abandon the suffering. So we have to get rid of the cause of the suffering. The cause of the suffering is the afflictive emotions. To overcome the cause of the suffering, and you have to address the root of the afflictive emotions, which are the grasping self, the person, and the phenomena. So this root. So to get rid of the root of the second existing or the cause of the suffering is the realization of emptiness. So therefore, with all So therefore, with all your efforts, engage this discourse alone. So the Arya there was saying that, so if I spend all my time, all my intellections, and just trying to understand the dependent originations will be enough to overcome the afflictive emotions. So almost like Ayadeva says, therefore I will kind of, use my all effort to discourse on the dependent origination or the emptiness, absolute intrinsic alone. So since the context in this passage, is that of identifying the delusions from among the three poisons. Yeah, I think in Tibetan there's a thimu. Thimu usually we translate as ignorance. So here, in this translator they're using delusions. Ignorance as the delusions. Among the three poisons, like anger, attachment, and ignorance, three poisons, right? So the delusions referred to here is afflicted ignorance. And for that ignorance to cease, it is said that one needs to realize the profound truth of dependent originations, whereby the meaning of the emptiness arises in terms of dependent originations. The commentary author 2 writes, yogi engage in the negation of selfhood. So this is Chandrakirti. Chandrakirti says, Chandrakirti says, malun jigsoles. Nyomo means all the afflictive emotions and the defects, right? Like verbally, physically, mentally, all the defects and afflictive emotions. When you analyze, when you kind of examine them, where it's coming from, what is the cause of it, what is the origin of it. So, and then this whole rooted into the grasping of self, a person. So therefore, through all effort to empty the truly existing of the self, a person. Right? So yogi in the negation of the selfhood, selfhood, right? Selfhood. So it's hoodie. So hoodie is just to protect yourself. So, and the state how it is necessary to realize the selflessness through eradicating the object of self-grasping. So therefore, one simply withdraws the mind from pursuing its object. Now, this is important, right? So, through eradicating the object of self-grasping, therefore, if one simply withdraws the mind from the pursuing its object without eradicating the object of self, of grasping, so without proving ignorance as the wrong perceptions, simply try not to think about I is not the right way to overcome. Right? So in the Kamalashila and in the stages of meditations also says, if it's someone who is trying to kind of someone who is kind of the way someone who is trying to overcome the afflictive emotions, and the path or the kind of way you choose to overcome the afflictive emotion is to simply be avoiding the grasping of self. So not dealing with grasping of self, just avoiding it. So this is like the man in the battles, right? With the enemy and closing his eyes and just kneel down. So I win. So yeah, simply withdrawing the mind from the pursuing these objects with the great radiant and self. And this cannot be taken as engaging with no self. So the reason is this: when the mind engages an object, it does so in one of three modes. So there's a three-way the mind that is engaging in objects. Number one, apprehending the object as a truly existing. In this way, there's a engaging an object. And then number two, apprehending it as not truly existence, right? And then number three is apprehending it without qualifying in either of these two terms. So you're not grasping of truly existing, or you're not conceiving them as not truly exist, just simply in the middle, right? So it is not invariably the case that because one does not apprehend something as lacking truly existing, one apprehends it truly existing. Likewise, just because one does not engage with either of these two forms of selfhood does not necessarily mean that one is engaging with either of these two forms of selflessness. So these are the countless instances. Yeah, there are countless instances where the perspective of the mind remain in the third options. So I think that most of the ordinary our perceptions are not really focusing on the truly existing, not in the not truly existing. It was just simply kind of engaging or the perceiving the object, right? But yeah, ordinary minds are always kind of underpinned with this ignorance. Whenever we see things, the color, smell, taste, tactilities, there's the innate grasping of self that is kind of actively and kind of the grasping at the color, smell, taste, tactilities are truly existing. So when it comes to the two forms of the self-grasping as well, we should identify them in our own mental continuum. Looking there, we need to establish one of the basis of very things we are deluded about, how it does not exist in the manner we ourselves are apprehending it. So otherwise, if our refutations of the self-existing and affirmation of the emptiness are directed only outwardly, so then our pursuit become like a person searching for the footprints of the thief in the in the middle, in the middle, while the robber has in fact fled into the woods. Meadow means
like a field of flowers.
Yeah. So such pursuit will be no impact at all. So which means now this is kind of your point is to For example, here, the first, our innate desire is to experience happiness. So because innately we desire for the happiness, which means there's no question that if someone give you the option, so do you want suffering or pain, suffering or happiness? So we never want the suffering, and we never satisfied any happiness. I want more and more and more, right? So that kind of that is the basis. Then what are the cause which is giving rise to this the afflictive emotions? So the afflictive emotions always emerge from the ignorance. The ignorance here is the grasping of self, truly existing, grasping truly existing of the person, and grasping truly existing of the phenomena. So this two grasping of self, a person, and phenomena are the root of all the afflictive emotions. This is the origin of all the suffering. So in order to overcome or to eradicate this two ignorance, you have to prove them. You have to prove these two ignorance are wrong perceptions, is misconceiving, and object that apprehended and grasped by the ignorance is non-existing. Right? So I think it's the so we have the idea sometimes, like to purify any kind of obstacles. So we think maybe there's another way, a different way of overcoming the obstacles. Sometimes we see in the ritual there's some kind of physical activities, gestures, and the burning the incense, doing the circumambulations, reciting the mantras. So we think, so there's kind of ritual, there's some custom that we think this may help you to overcome the obstacles, obstacles which are the cause for the discomfort. So here they're saying that to the ignorance that cannot be overcome or to get rid of that by any physical gestures, any recitations, right? Not prayer, not faith. So this will move, this kind of, ignorance can move or can get rid only when you realize the emptiness. So ignorance cannot be get rid even by generating compassion and bodhicitta, right? So how much you try or can you have gain or the practice the compassion and generating bodhicittas, ignorance just you cannot move that. Right? Ignorance also involved in your faith. It comes with your faith. Ignorance comes with your anger. Ignorance comes with your compassion. Ignorance comes with your bodhicitta. So ignorance is like a potato. It goes with it goes with chickens. Goes with beef as well. So ignorance says that nothing harms me. So yeah, to get rid of that, you have to prove this mind, these two minds are kind of is totally wrong with respect to its object. So the object that is conceived and apprehended by the ignorance is not exist at all. So that is the kind of directly opposing to the ignorance. then there's a possible chances to overcome the ignorance.
You don't exactly mean the object does not exist at all. I think you mean the object does not exist as it appears, as having an intrinsic, I mean, there's still the conventional side. The object does exist, but it doesn't exist as it appears.
Yeah. So first, I want to tell you that you have the background pictures. Chimpanzee with flower.
I have?
Yeah.
Do I look like a chimp now? Oh, I have. Yeah, I did. I put a chimpanzee in the back.
Yeah.
You're right. I did that. Should I not do that? Is that disrespectful?
No.
I think
It's
we're
very,
kind
very
of like
respectful.
chimpanzees. I mean, I'm like a chimpanzee anyhow. I don't hold flowers most of the time.
Yeah.
Would you like me to change my picture? Yes,
So
it's destructive. Oh, it is. That's my wife who's ill telling me my picture is very distracting. And I dare not define her.
I thought that your wall has this picture.
No. I put that as my background.
Yes. So
It's
now,
very
now I know you. What's your background?
Oh, that's because I feel like a chimpanzee. I'll change it. I don't know how to change it. I'll find something more.
It's become clear.
Less intrinsically solid.
So today is very clear now. Larry's background is chimpanzee.
Oh, you don't like my chimpanzee picture.
So you are saying that. So, for example, ignorance is, for example, not knowing how to spell apple, right? Not knowing how to spell means. So that not knowing how to spell means not just simply not knowing. You are actively spelling wrong, right? So actively spelling wrong as the apple, you say APLE. So that is kind of like ignorance. So in order to get rid of that ignorance, and you learn how to spell the apple, APPLE, right? So it's directly opposing. So the object, the object that apprehended by the misconceptions has to be negate, means refute. So the truly existing of I, truly existing of the phenomena are the object that are apprehended by the misconceptions. So these two objects has to be proven to be non-existence. Otherwise, the ignorance cannot be, kind of abandoned. You understand that? Yeah.
Well, kind of. I mean, there is no intrinsically correct way to spell apple. There's just a conventionally accepted way.
So even conventionally, so there's the wrong and the right, right? So conventionally, APLE is the wrong spelling of the apple. Conventionally, APPLE is the right spelling of the apple. So conventionally. So which means you have to one has to be proven wrong, right? To gain the convictions about that this is the right.
Of course, if you read the Bible, the apple is the whole problem.
Yeah.
They bit the apple of knowledge, and we went wrong from there. Okay, that's a bad comment.
Poor
Maybe
apple.
we should use an orange.
Everything blames to the apples. So apple is the most expensive thing. So if you cannot find anything to blame, then apple says, just blame me. I don't care. So anyway, the right I'm saying is to get rid of it, to eradicate the true ignorance. So the way the kind of eliminating the ignorance is only through proving that the object that apprehended or conceived by the ignorance is not truly exist or not exist at all.
Can we say that not truly exist is similar to not findable? So like when you're analyzing and you come to the point where it logically does not make sense, so it's not findable, is that the same thing as proving?
Yes, it's kind of here, this what is the object of the grasping of self, person? Then I would say intrinsic I is the object that is apprehended by the grasping of self, person. Intrinsic I. The intrinsic I, what is the intrinsic I? I that exists in and of itself, which means not depending on the body, not depending on the feeling, not depending on the mental formations, not depending on the perceptions. It just exists by itself. That kind of I, right, is always believed and apprehended or grasping by the ignorance. Right. So now, in order to overcome that ignorance, you have to understand that kind of I is not exist at all. There is no I that exists in and of itself. The intrinsic I is not exist. Now you have a better background, Manjushri.
Yeah, I thought you might not complain about that.
So that's because with I think in mundanely we always think that to get rid of something that you do not want, right? So there's always indirect way. There's a kind of, you don't have to directly destroy it. So you can do or kind of call the police or something like that, right? And sometimes with the superstition, they believe that, oh, this morning I have kind of very uncomfortable. I have a bad dream. So what may have caused this? And you think, oh, that's, if go to the the lamas and then say, oh, I have a bad dreams. Can you tell me what is that sign? And he will do the divinations. Oh, so he will tell you, maybe this is kind of because of you went to some place and some people may have, curse, or some people that really have a hatred towards you, or you have done something in the past life, and then you our second question is, how do I get rid of that? How can I set myself free from this? So then this will tell you, oh, this kind of rituals, right? Or Vajrasava, or the fire puja, or something like that. So these are not really directly dealing with the main cause. It's just kind of find a way to just avoiding the problems. So the ignorance cannot be overcome by this kind of methods. So because ignorance, I says, this is like potato ignorance. If you are meditating, generating compassion, ignorance, willing to participate, you are practice. So if you're trying to generate the Bodhisattva, even the Mahayana path, and the faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, is ignorance is, I'm too religious like you. So he will come with that. So the ignorance, so now only way to get rid of that ignorance is, and proving ignorance is totally wrong with respect to the object. Object that are apprehended or conceived by the ignorance is not exist at all. So now when you say that, right, the object that apprehended or conceived by the ignorance is not exist at all. So does that mean their focal objects is not exist in general? The question is focus object. Now here's the focal object and apprehensions. What you apprehended, what is the aspect of that mind, right? So the aspect of that mind and the focus objects is two different things. You may be focused on the table. Right? Then, and you conceive in your mind, right? You can conceive in your mind as a wooden table as iron table, right? So if you conceive that an iron table, so that conceptions, the aspect object is the iron table, wooden table as iron table is the aspect object. So that is not exist, right? So the focal object like a table as a truly intrinsic existence is the kind of the aspect of that mind. So that aspect object is you have to prove a non-existence. So this is why the dependent originations is subtle dependent originations, and emptiness is the same thing. Right? Empty of independent, therefore things dependent arising. Dependent arising, therefore nothing independent. So identify this the print of the thief in the meadow where the robber has fled. In fact, fled into the wood. Such pursuit with no impact at all. Yeah, I think it's pretty much, so that's why I say, if you follow only Buddhist cultures and you don't really understand the essence of the Buddha Shakyamuni teaching, right? So Buddhist culture is like, to path, to do kind of, map. So if you just look at the map, you cannot get anywhere. Right? So the essence, and the Buddha's teaching is, I think there is nothing to do much with your cultures. It's just to understand the reality as it is. So when we have thus identified well what constitutes grasping at truly existence, we come to recognize numerous instances of thought that do not constitute either of these two forms of grasping at self-existence. This will therefore help prevent all the misconceptions pertaining to the view that reasoning, inquiring into the suchness, negates all object apprehended by the conceptual thought. So no matter what, there are so many issues arising from from questions such as this that require more discussions, right? More discussions. Some of these have already been addressed on numerous occasions elsewhere, and some will be addressed below as well. So I will not elaborate further here. Sometimes elaboration is more confusing. So,
So we basically have to remove, doesn't this come down to, we really have to remove all fabrications. Isn't that seeing reality as it is? What gets in the way of seeing reality as it is, like you say, conceptual thought, or all our fabrications. It seems almost that means ultimately we have to remove, it sounds like it means we have to remove ultimately our thinking mind. That our thinking mind, it seems, would be the thing that gets in the way.
yeah,
But we have to get there by thinking.
That's your hypothetical. So, the object that are apprehended by the thought, right, at all means. Now, I think similar here, if I say pacify all mental constructs, or the pacification of the mental construct is the way to find the sustainable, reliable peace. So now, what do you mean by pacifying all the mental construct? So, for example, they're saying the hungry ghosts are kind of their main suffering. Their kind of is thirst and hunger, right? So that every time when they see the mirage, they always kind of have desire to go closer to drink the water. Right? So every time when they get closer to the mirage, they kind of they always kind of have disappointment because there is no water. But that does not stop them. Again, when they see other side of the mirage, they also again they go there, and then again they're disappointing. So they keep happening this. So now here saying we have to prove that this mirage has no water at all. By proving this mirage has no water at all, but still kind of not annihilating the water-like mirage. The water-like mirage is the reality. Water being as mirage, mirage being water is non-existence, right? So in the sense, mental constructs are not truly exist by their own essence. Right? Mental constructs do not exist by their own essence. The mental constructs exist through the projections. For example, here, future, right? So the future means arising of the sprout, right? Anything that is coming in the futures. So future is, if you try to find anything within the future or in the futures or from the future from their own side, if you try to find, is there anything there? Right. So the future of the sprout, does this has any sprout? So if there is a sprout, is that the sprout from the past or the present? If no sprout from the past, no sprout from the present, and what kind of sprout in the future? Right. So no sprout at all in the kind of the future of the sprout, or the future of the sprout has no sprout at all. So how many times you just prove that, convince that? But when you imagine the future and there is appearance of the sprout, like, when you realize this is the mirage should not have or must not have any water. But still, when you see the mirage, there's the water like mirage is there. So accepting that appearance and knowing there is no water is the way, I think is the main point here, the pacifications. So we're not annihilating anything, right? We're simply kind of negating the objectivities. Yeah, I think that's pretty much, it's quite difficult to understand in the Bray and the Prasangika school, the point of view of the conventional reality. Conventional reality means Prasangika school says you just kind of you have to convince that you have to be more convinced that the reality appearance is the only reality to you. If you go beyond that appearance, there is no such objectivities that exist by their own. So with appearance, there's many appearance. So the appearance always not exist as it appears. So, the appearance do exist. Like, for example, the color exists. Color exists from the contact of the sense power and the light and the space and the form. Right. But color never exists in and of itself. The color is not located in the form. Color is not located in the space or the light, not pre-exists within your eye sense power. But altogether, there's a color to see. So, like in the smell and taste is like that. Right? The smell or the taste. The smell exists. Smell exists when the that things, the outer elements and the inner element, the contact, the smell exists. But smell do not pre-exist in the external elements, nor it pre-exists in the internal element. But from the contact, so like two energy, just contact, the third the third thing just happened, right? When you do that, the heats can come. So in the air, when you kind of move your hand, there is a sound. Right? This sound is not pre-exist, not in the hand, not in the space. When two things collaborate, and third things to happen. So in this way, color, smell, taste, tactility, like that. So with the kind of the color, smell, taste, tactility that directly experienced by the sensory perceptions. Now, this is not just alone. Now your thought has to come and give a name, right? Identifying things. So then again, there's another third things happen. So that is called, fabrications or mental creations, right? So there's always, when third kind of, like this is like a number. When the number 1 and 2 there, and number 3 comes, become, right, 1, 2, 3. And 4 comes, again, you just count. So the two elements, between two elements, create one new entity, new phenomena with the contact of the consciousness, sensory consciousness. And then again, the thought consciousness involved and giving a labeling on the things that you have directly experienced. And then another object, the appearance, the conventional reality that happen to exist. So none of those objects has essentially exist by their own. So I think this is why, in Tantrayana, they use like Vajra, kind of holding the Vajras with the right hand, says, this is the method. And then other hands holding the wisdoms, kind of bells, this is represent the wisdom. So with the beliefs that sustain the Vajra that is giving a strength by the wisdom, right? Vajra is the kind of, the power, right? So that can destroy all the afflictive emotions. They're giving strengthening by the wisdom. So without wisdom, so it's just kind of, it's just the potential. With wisdom, the potential manifest and the powerful weapon that can get rid of all the afflictive emotions and even the stain of the afflictive emotions. So I think everything that lead or guide by wisdom. With wisdom, there is kind of, there is the possible of perfecting your generosity, your faith, your renunciation, your consultations. So without the wisdoms, which means, right, without the wisdoms, with misconceptions, with ignorance, you still can practice generosity, patience, compassion, consultations, and the faith, and everything's there with ignorance. But still, because of without the wisdoms, it has no strength. It may have some kind of, So if the fire is too small, you cannot cook the rice. Maybe you can have half cooked rice. You can have, right? So with the wisdom here, so the sound, the bell represent the wisdom, means the sound of the bell is not pre-exists within the bell, the shape of the bell, not in the tongue, right? So it's not there. When two things contact, and there's another phenomenon, right? So there's sound that exists. The sound from the bell is not pre-exists within the bell. Not it has somewhere, it just kind of exists somewhere, and then when you kind of, when you shake the bell, and then sound coming back, and it's not like that. But just two things contact, and third things happen. Two energies produce the third energies. So like your inner elements and outer elements, the contact of that experience with the consciousness, and you find there's the color to see, there's the smell to smell, there's the taste to taste, the tactilities. to take over it, right? And there's a sound to listen. So contact of the two elements. So if two things create and one third things happen, and how about fourth one, the thought comes, and another things just happen. So like the future, past, presence exists due to the thought. And right? So, and then the relations, cause and effect relations. So if just only we have sensory perceptions and we have no idea, we should not have any concept of next life and this life. We should not have any concept of the law and cause effect. So we do not have any concept of the karmic force and the afflictive emotions. So all because of this thought. So with this thought, we can we can relate it. Oh, this, when you look at the tomato or the round tomato, or this tomato comes from the different seed, or the long tomatoes has their own seed. So with thought, we can understand, right? So the relations that coming into the existence due to the conceptualizations. So anyway, any kind of the subject or objects, none of those that exist from their own essence, all dependently exist, like tall and short, like this direction, that directions, and east and west, north and south. So these all just related, kind of relatively exist. If we have only sensory perception, probably we don't have any concept of direction. So there is no concept of, right, this side and that side. There is no concept of east and west and south and north. So the Prasangika school is saying any object that exists before the mind are creation of the mind. And now when we say the creation of the mind means is not pre-exist in the mind and just producing it. It just happened, from the inner elements in the body and the outer elements, the contact consciousness find third phenomena, right? Color, smell, taste, tactility. And then with that color, smell, taste, tactilities that experienced and perceived by the sensory perceptions, and conceptually identifying, oh, this is the color, not the smell. This is the smell, not the taste. So single unit, selectively identifying a single unit that happens due to the thought. So this whole object by themselves has no essence, no kind of, not exist from their own side. So I think going back to the main point, so overcoming ignorance only through proving the object that apprehended and conceived by the ignorance is not exist at all. Without that, there is no way you can overcome, get rid of the ignorance. Yeah. So of course, there is no way you can overcome ignorance by by burning the incense, the circumambulations, the prostrations, right? Yeah. So then it's a chapter 10 or so. Refuting arising from the self and others. So now from this ground 6, so it seems like we are going back to the Nagarjuna's chapter 1. How the meaning of the scriptures is established by reason. This has two parts: establishing the selflessness of phenomena through reasoning and establishing selflessness person through reasoning. Right. So two establishment, no intrinsic person, no intrinsic phenomena. Right. So establishing the selflessness of phenomena through reasonings, this has 4 parts: refuting arising from 4 extreme on both level of the truth. So the 4 extremes, things do not arise by itself. No, things do not arise from other. Things do not arising from the both. Things do not arise from no cause. So this 4 corner logic is refuted in ultimately and conventionally. Even conventionally, there is no such thing or such effect that arises by itself and arises from others, both without cause. So rebutting the objections against refuting intrinsic arising. So this number 2 is kind of rebutting objections against the refuting intrinsic existence, because the arguments that the other school thought that they dispute, if you're refuting that things has no arising from itself and others and both and no cause, even in conventionally, right? If you refute that and you have no arising, so which means you are annihilating the concept of arising. If there is no arising, there is no effect. If there's no effect, no cause. No cause, no effect, no path to liberation, no cause to the hell. So you are falling into nihilism, to rebutting the objections, to defend that, to prevent the dispute, and then Chandrakirti's discuss exercise on the how conventionally accept what is the reality, how the ordinary world, how they accept the reality. So and how arising through the dependent originations prevents distortion of adhering to extreme view. Arising through the dependent originations. So here this is, what is the what is the unique quality in realization of the dependent originations? So then says, dependent originations, dependent means, right? Dependent means it already negating the independent. So that already emptied the independent nature, because things are dependent, right? And origination means something occur dependently. So the sound occurring, which saying it is not a non-existing, there is existing, right? So dependent occur means no independent, but still happens. So no independent is not a nihilism. So the fruit of engage and analysis with reasonings. So the fruit of the having engaged and analysis the reasoning. So what is the fruit of that? And you find the kind of, you can find the path that is free from true extreme. So the path that leads to the liberation, enlightenment, that path itself is free from true extreme, not exaggeration, not annihilating. So I think that is the path free from true extreme is the one that makes the Tathagat. So Buddha called Tathagat. So gone to the reality, or gone to the wisdom, or gone to the realizations, knowing the reality as it is. Because the path you're coming from is the path itself is free from true extreme. So when you perfect that path, and you will always in the still, not falling into nihilism, not superimposing. So, and you see things as it is. So refuting arising from the extreme, for extreme on the both level of truth, conventional and ultimate. This has three parts, stating the proposition that there is no arising through the intrinsic natures. Number two, the logical proofs that establish this through reasoning. So conclusions having negate arising from the four extreme. So any questions?
What are the four extremes?
Four extremes, things arises by themselves. So you can also, translate that to something happened by itself, right? Something occurred by itself, right? And that is one of the extreme. And then things happened from others. Things produced by other or from others. So the Prasangika school says this is extreme. If you think anything that produce and it produced by itself is extreme, it produced from other is extreme. And it produced from other and by itself, the both is extreme. And things happen without cause is extreme. So for example, today is Sunday, tomorrow is Monday, Monday is coming. If the Monday, right, comes tomorrow by itself, so Monday maybe it will stay until next Friday because it comes by itself. So here is saying Monday is coming because the Sunday is disintegrating. So disintegration of the Sunday is the one that makes the existing of Monday coming. So the Monday never come by itself. So, and then when tomorrow morning is a Monday, that tomorrow morning, the Monday, once kind of day has, happened, that Monday has happened or arisen, and that Monday, no way you can find it arises from somewhere, something others, because there is no Sunday to count to the others. Monday is not produced by other, born from other. So that's too extreme. And without cause, yeah, and also that's the obvious kind of extreme. So it all suits. The true extreme is kind of suit with independent nature, intrinsic nature. Intrinsic nature means, oh, there is myself, the intrinsically existing that is coming from the past life, and right now in the present. Now this intrinsic I is going to the next life. So when you see there's a myself that intrinsically exists, so not with this body. So wherever it goes, it's not necessarily have to go with body. So that is the extreme kind of view of the kind of self-existence. So in that case, you can say, so Monday is the day. Monday will have day. Sunday has day. So the day is coming from Monday and stay throughout the kind of 7 days. So maybe you have an intrinsic day that continuously, constantly existing with each days. If there is no such day like, intrinsically existing, why there is intrinsic I? So this, if there is the day that constantly remaining, existing with every days, which means this intrinsic day is also, endure with the, every year. Right? Now you have a day that is a permanently existing, right? So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, they don't have this kind of intrinsic reality. So when Monday happens, Sunday kind of disintegrates. The day, so that stay forever. So if you think there is such thing as there's a day that is remaining for years and years and years, and it's a kind of it is the a single entity. So then, yes, of course, there is independent I. So then you have an 8th day. So day is not a Sunday, not a Friday, not a Saturday. so I think that's how Mindful School, they have an idea with the mind basis of the 8 consciousness.
Actually, I just made a connection with something, but I can't quite relate it to what you just said. Okay, what I understood, that this is before I met you, is that the 4 extremes is it doesn't inherently exist. And also, that's one extreme. If it inherently exists, that's the extreme of absolutism. And the second one is it doesn't exist at all. So non-existence it doesn't exist at all. And that was the extreme of nihilism. And the third was
I think here's it like, refuting arising from four extremes on both levels. So both level means arising from itself and other, both without cause. Not only in ultimate level, even conventionally. So even conventionally, there is no such thing that arises from itself or by itself.
Okay, the point where I'm having trouble connecting here, maybe there is no connection, maybe these are different kind of views. But does the schemata you just gave doesn't arise from self, doesn't arise from others? Okay, is arising from self absolutism, but it seems you can't say, I can't quite make the connection with arising for other is nihilism. It seems to be a different model or schemata than the one I just expressed. Or are those two connected? Existing, non-existence, self, and other. Are they two completely different kind of exposition?
So last Friday, were you there? Are you in the class last Friday?
No.
Oh, that. So you missed that part.
I missed that part.
So here this thing arises from not from itself, not from others. So you have to think when you, for example, the futures, the effect or the future thing do not arise by itself. Means the future has no nature to have activity from its own side, right? Because the very kind of powerful reason is unborn. Right? How can unborn have some kind of activity of coming or waving you? Right? So therefore, future has no quality or no nature of arising, which means nothing arises by itself. The second, nothing kind of arises from other, means things that already being produced. The sprout is already kind of in the shape. So that thing, that sprout, so nowhere you can see once more arises from its seed. Right? Because there is no seed to count to be other from the sprout itself. Because when the sprout is manifest, the seed has ceased to exist. Right? So night and the day, like that. So when the night ceased, the day happened. That day ceased, night happened. Right? So you cannot say this day is different from last night. Because last night ended. So then this day happened. So the day and night are the different, today is no different from yesterday. Yogurt is no different from the milk. Sprout is no different from the seed. Right? So one that is who newly become arhat is the arhat don't see himself as a different from his samsaric being. So if this is a samsaric being as a different from one who become arhat, So then, because if you think because of the time, or because of the different time, or because of the samsaric being is no free from afflictive emotion, arhat is free from afflictive emotions. If you think that, then probably it says the criminal and the crime. So when someone who is, committing a crime, right? So the next day, the police come to caught him. So he said, you cannot, because he is different from the one who is committing the crime. Because the crime that he committing is yesterday. So today is a different person. So you cannot prove that, because this person, every kind of, even in the conventionally, right? Conventionally says, he is no different from one that yesterday committing the crime. So therefore, we have to kind of catch him to put in the jail. So if this is no different from it, and why this today one who become the arhat, and the arhat find himself is different from the samsaric being. So morning that you wake up, the person who slept last night is no different from that. So not arises from other means there is no, right? His previous conditions are no different. Is not, there is, you cannot prove that the previous conditions are different from it. If no different, then this new product is no way it can find or arises from other. So yeah, so if you say, I'm making breakfast, and then we will finish the breakfast making, and then you put in the table, the person who is eating the breakfast is the different from one who is making the breakfast. So other person make breakfast for me, right? So you made it, right? 9 o'clock, you're just making the breakfast, and then you're 9:30, you finished, and 45, you start eating. That the person who is having a breakfast is no different from one who is making the breakfast. So, that's the reason nothing arises from others. No other, no by itself, not from both, not without a cause. Nothing could happen without a cause. Yeah, so even the Madhyamika Savatantrika, so they have hard time accepting it. So you say, oh, right, but the Savatantrika thinks that seed and sprout, because of the time different, I still see they are different, right? Different from the color, different from the size, different from the time. So, so now the question is, if this is really kind of different, are they substantially different, or just because of that it happened in different time? If the substantially different, then this has to be different like apple and orange. So if the seed and sprout like apple and orange, like independent, two different things, then, so when the seed giving rise to the effect, so there is the activity of the arising of the sprout at the time of the seed. So the disintegrating of the seed and the arising of the sprout, right? One is disintegrating, one is coming. So one is in the process of, disintegrating, one is in the process of coming. So these two put together, or with these two, what we call it as transformation. These transformations, one disintegrating, one coming, these transformations cannot be perceived by this sensual perception, direct perceptions. So one disintegrate, one coming means one has passed, one is coming into the existing as a future. The past and the futures, the activity of the past and the futures cannot be directly experienced, witnessed by any sensual perceptions. So this transformation of the things is kind of logically, theoretically or rationally, you can reveal that kind of reality. So again, you see this past and the futures, or activity of the connection of the past and the futures. From there, you can understand something has born, something is coming. That the coming and the something happened are both, both is existing through the conceptualization. So the arising and the arising arising is through the conceptualizations. When the arising is through the conceptualizations, right? Sprout arising from the seed is also conceptualization. Sprout arising from, right? So you see, for example, if I have, $1 bill, so I can conceptualize. So from this dollar, I can have coffee, and from this dollar, I can have banana, right? So I can conceptualize. So within conceptualizations, what I see, the coming of the banana, coming of the coffee. So if without conceptualizations, with eye, you see just paper, the dollar bill. There is nothing coming I can see. So the arising is only kind of, only conceive through conceptualizations. So I think that is the most the main point here in the Prasangika school says. So when the arising itself is only seen through the conceptualizations, then that arising should not be substantial. So what has substantially before the eye consciousness means what you can see, what you can touch, that is no way you can see arising. So what you are witnessing through the sensory perceptions, in no way these things can arise from their cause. So if things that are already being produced are not seen once again arising from their cause, and what is that thing that you see arising? What is that thing that you call it arising as a future? Can this be smell? Can this be touch? Can this be seen with your eye? No. So that's why arising is through the conceptualization. So I think if you reflect on your everyday, like your past, yesterday, a month before, when you see how you, how you pursue things, how you go, like how you set your goal, right? from the young age, going to the school, what is in your mind, what you see, and what you visualize, and how you are able to make things happen. So, which means what you see in this, right? What you see is they always see the possibilities. So the possibilities and the probabilities. This is the only thing that you see every day. That gives you the hope. That gives you the desire. So then we just give a color or shape on those possibilities, the probability, and we selectively choose one thing and we go after it. But still, that things you're mentally, you are just giving a shape. It's not physically. Yeah, so
it's true. It's true that you can't establish a connection without conceptualization.
Yeah.
That's true, but I'm going to put a but in here. Without seeing or imagining in some way the possibility is more than a possibility. Without visioning it as existing, without kind of envisioning it, you can never bring it into existence. You have to envision it before it can come into physical existence.
Yeah, the Monday you don't have to visual, it's just happened.
Yeah, but that's different. That's different.
So
Because
2003,
you're
23, 24.
You're not actively trying to bring something into existence. This is very different. Because if you want to bring something into existence, you have to envision it. Otherwise, it may just arise by interdependent conditions, yes, but there has to be more often, speaking more frequently, an intention and a vision of what you want to happen for it to physically manifest. Otherwise, generally speaking, at least, it won't physically manifest unless it's directly the ripening maybe of karma or whatever, or various causes and conditions. But you have a kind of, there's a creative aspect here that if you want something to exist, you have to will it in a sense. You have to see it, or else it's not likely to come into existence.
Yeah. So tomato seeds, so tomato seed together with soil and water and the suns, the tomato has no desire to giving rise to the tomato sprout. And then once the sprout has happened, sprout is no desire to give leaves and the branches and the flowers. So each flowers have no kind of visualizations going to have tomatoes. As things driven by their potentials and their impermanent natures and giving shape. Right? So
Yeah, but
yeah.
don't you think we're very different in this respect from tomato seeds? Don't you think
I don't see much difference between
there's a very substantial difference between humans and their possibilities and their ability to imagine possibilities. Tomato seeds don't have this capacity. I don't think it's directly comparable. Yes, there's some element in what arises in our life that also applies, but there's also a substantial difference here.
So what I said earlier is my main point is not talking about, I'm not saying human being and tomato are same. So, and also I find, I know there's a unique quality in human being. Human being can lead their own goal or accept their own goal with their desire and with their own way of kind of making that happen. So anyway, so the point here is, what is that arising? What is the concept of arising? So the concept of arising, can it be seen or can it be substantial? So if that is not substantial and there is no way you can directly perceive any kind of nature of the arising, so then the arising should exist merely in the face of thought. That because of your conceptualizations. So the point here is no arising from itself, no arising from other, no arising from the both, no arising from the no cause, which the main thing, what they trying to kind of to establish, to constitute is the very concept of arising is not substantial, is the fabrications, is the conceptualizations. So things that has no shape, no kind of not really kind of so not really substantial, not exist by itself. And how can be that, right? Knowing this is arising by itself and arising from others. So there may be some kind of argument from the Sotanic school and mind-only school. They may say, yes, there is things can arise from other, because things you can pinpoint, finger, you can point the sprout, the barley sprout. This is arising from other, because this arising from the barley seed, right? So barley seed and the sprout that is being produced has a different time, different size, different color. So we think that this barley sprout that's already in arisen has to be born from others. So the Prasangic school says, so right now you are differentiating in the conceptually. I'm saying any arisen sprout, to arise, to be able to see the arising from the seed, right? And then, which means you are believing every arisen sprout arises from the seed. So which means arisen is once more arising from the seed. So the Prasangic school says you're just kind of is too superficial. So you're just seeing things in imaginations, and then things, and these are substantial. So what you're seeing, kind of separation of the seed and the sprout, or the time difference. These are all conceptually. So any erasing sprout, any things that are being produced, never ever once more arises from their cause. And the reason is when things arise, when things arisen, when things being produced, the cause of that is already ceased to exist. When the cause is already ceased to exist, and how can you see that arisen phenomena or a product is arising from it? So you haven't seen the sprout arising from the seed with present sprout. So if you don't see the sprout arising from the seed with present sprout, and what else? Right? Where else do you see? So automatically they think, yes, that's the future. The future, when I look into the futures, I see it is coming, it is arising, and the only way it can arise is the seed. So then Prasangika school goes, yeah, the future sprout. You say the futures are yet to be born. As something not born, how can you see it is coming? How can you see it's moving? So open your eyes. Open your eyes, smell the coffee. so one aspect you see is the futures and not yet born. And one aspect you see, oh, it has the activity. It is moving, it's coming. And it's also coming from there. So which then Buddha Palita says, now if you see that and you are seeing unborn son raise himself by his own collective money. So, right? So if you can see the unborn son raise himself from his own wealth, then you can say, oh, the future is arising by itself. The Siddhantic school, they don't really, they don't see it's possible unborn son has raised himself by his wealth. So unborn sprout is how it arising. So Prasangika school says, you are, fail to prove a sprout arising from the seed with erasing sprout, and you are fail to prove a sprout arising from the seed with the nature of the future. So if you cannot prove sprout arising from the seed with erasing sprout or unborn sprout, so then you have to give up, right? There is such thing as arising. So the same questions that we dispute in the Prasangika school says, yeah, so arising is the appearance. This is like when you see the mirage, the water-like things there. That is the appearance. So there is the kind of, the water-like things is not produced by the mirage. It is not in the mirage. It's your face that reflect in the mirror, and the reflection of the face is not the face itself, not the kind of substantial quality of the mirror itself. So when you project something, and that's how you see the activity. So the activity is not from the future by the nature of the future. Activity appears to you because you project it. You through the conceptualization, you project something, therefore it seems to you there's some kind of activities. So even just simply, you just sit there in a comfortable chair, and you can imagine, right? Right. So there's the elephant, they're flying in the sky. So you can project that. So that maybe create another imaginations. So the elephants just falling onto you. You may change it. So that kind of activity is seen because you have project. There is the activities. So that activity is not the object by itself. So that's what the scientific school says. Nothing really, right? The substantial, nothing exists by their own essence. Yeah. Just push the kind of very, thick iron door. Every day, push little by little. One day, there's chances to open. Then you see. Any questions? So I see Manjushri with Larry. So, so I can see the Larry arising from the Manjushri. So that's the creation of the computer in my eye. It's not done by Larry himself, not by the picture of the magician itself. Yeah, okay. Chanju simjo rinpoche, majeba na jeji, jeba nyamba, meba nyamba, kone kondo pyabucho, tonye tawa rinpoche, majeba na jeji, jeba nyamba, meba nyamba, kone kondo pyabucho, pama simjo tamje, dedan denju, nyendo tamje tato tono, chanju zemba kanda sushu pe, teda gunje, molon juji ruji, karira beko beshi, nazo pendande, wama rujo ne, jere sewa, tenzin jato yishabe, sede bado denju ruji.
May the precious body mind have yet born horizon grow. May the bone have no decline but increase forever. May the precious mind realizing emptiness have yet born horizon grow. May the bone have no decline but increase forever. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentient beings have all their happiness. May all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful chanting intelligence. Remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much.